Representative Steve Demetriou. Welcome to Message from the House.
Hey, thanks, Olivia. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for making time. I know it's been a very busy week.
Yeah, definitely.
Around in the legislature.
No doubt.
I want to start just by asking a little bit about you and your background,
Sure.
and then kind of talk me through your district.
Great. Yeah. Steve Demetriou, second term state representative. Most importantly, a Christian. I have a beautiful family, my wife Carly, and 3 little boys, 4, 3, and 1. And then outside of the legislature, I run a business with my family and own small businesses and commercial real estate. And yeah, it's been an honor to serve Northeast Ohio the last 3 years, I guess now. District 35 encompasses parts of 3 counties, Geauga County, where I live, Portage County, and Summit County, and very competitive district politically. It's been truly an honor to get back into public service. In my past life, I'm a former Army officer, so it's been fun serving my community again in the legislature.
Where were you stationed?
I was, right after West Point. After I graduated from West Point, I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, and did all my cool guy infantry training there. And then went to Fort Hood, Texas. Somebody named it the Great Place. I'm not sure how it got that name, but Killeen, Texas is probably not the most beautiful place in the world. But actually got to live in Austin, so
Nice.
And travel, commuted up to Fort Hood, and then did a deployment to Afghanistan during that time, and then left the service in 2016.
Well, thank you for your service. I asked where you were stationed because I recently moved from Savannah, Georgia. So we had
yep.
Fort Stewart,
Yep.
about 45 minutes away, and then we had the Hunter Army Air Force.
Yep.
So those folks got a little bit better of a luck of a draw of a place of where to live with the beach.
No doubt. Yeah.
Coastal Georgia, but
Yeah, I was middle of my class at West Point, so kind of took what I got. But it was a great unit and great times. I mean, checked a lot of boxes in life I never thought I would. But yeah. Savannah's a very cool town.
that is incredible. I think middle at West Point, you're still doing pretty well.
I guess, yeah. It was. I outkicked my coverage a bit there. So.
Well, very impressive. Thank you for talking about that. We are here to talk about cryptocurrency today. I admittedly am not very familiar with this topic, and I think it would be a great opportunity for you to explain to folks a little bit about this space and what cryptocurrency, or the popular term we hear, Bitcoin, what is this exactly?
Sure. So cryptocurrency is a digital asset, and I'll probably use that term. There's outside of cryptocurrency, there's other digital assets like non-fungible tokens, which I don't think we need to get into here. But cryptocurrencies are essentially digital money, and it's a store of value that more and more consumers have chosen to acquire and store buy more of over the years, and there's a wide array. Bitcoin, as you mentioned, is a type of cryptocurrency, probably the most prolific, highest market capitalization cryptocurrency in the market today. But there's a wide array of cryptocurrencies. We want to make sure cryptocurrencies are not treated as a security. That was certainly a battle that was fought in the Biden administration with Gary Gensler, who is not a fan of cryptocurrencies. Thankfully, he's gone now. He wanted to treat them like securities. But using securities, publicly traded stocks as an example, you have penny stocks, kind of fly-by-night penny stocks, and then you have blue chip Fortune 200 companies like Apple and Microsoft. Same thing in the cryptocurrency space. You have sort of fly-by-night cryptocurrencies that often are the ones grabbing the headlines, but then you have truly sort of institutionalized blue chip cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin that have multi-trillion-dollar market capitalization. It's up there with the largest companies in the world. Truly like in the top 5, I believe, depending on where the market is today. But so that it's essentially digital currencies that are very secure, using complex computer code. That's kind of how they're created and stored. stored and exchanged on the blockchain, which is a public ledger that's online, very transparent, very safe, easily audited, which I think is a great thing for the government to consider using blockchain technology more of. But that's kind of where these cryptocurrencies are exchanged in a very safe and secure manner. And so that's just a little bit about what cryptocurrencies are and how they're exchanged in the marketplace.
Thank you for explaining that. I want to ask, is digital currency ever converted to the US dollar? Is that something that happens?
Yes, and vice versa, right? I mean, that's how most Americans are purchasing these digital assets, these cryptocurrencies, like Bitcoin, typically on major online exchanges like Coinbase is one of the Kraken. That's another kind of prolific one. Coinbase, legitimate publicly traded company now. One of the market leaders, and so oftentimes people are sending fiat U.S. dollars from their bank account to a Coinbase wallet and purchasing using U.S. dollars, cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin through these online exchanges. And then there's a wide array of means to store these currencies. You can have a cold wallet. So I used to store my cryptocurrency on a cold wallet, which was an encrypted thumb drive. I don't do that anymore, but that's a great, safe, and secure way to do it. There's sort of institutional level companies that also utilize cold wallets. These are offline wallets, or you can have a hot wallet like on Coinbase or something like that, where you're storing these different types of assets.
So more or less like a digital bank.
Yes, and I love that comparison, Olivia, because I think we're going to probably talk a little more about this, but one of the attacks on cryptocurrency is, oh, you can't touch it or feel it. But let's be honest, most of us aren't carrying around, tens of thousands of dollars of cash in our pockets. We're storing that cash in an online bank account, right? Where we're not touching and feeling that cash every day. We're trusting that bank that whatever we log in, that number that I see on the screen, that's how many dollars are in my account. And it's the same thing with cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. It's a digital currency. Yeah, you're never going to be able to touch and see and feel it, but it's real and it's here to stay. So.
And for the record, that was not a probing question. That was my naive self trying to understand the world of crypto and digital currency, just trying to make that comparison in my head. So.
Just to think of it as a very complex computer code that is a store of value.
Perfect. And I want to ask, why is this a sector that you believe that the government should be more involved in?
Well, first and foremost, I want to make sure the government stays out of it as much as possible. And that's why I think, just like a lot of things, like similar to my work on artificial intelligence, this is here to stay. So we're seeing this sort of further adoption of cryptocurrency across our economy here in Ohio, nationally and internationally. And like I said, I just want to make sure the government sort of, just like our lives, I want the government out of our lives as much as possible across all facets of our society and our economy. And when we're talking about cryptocurrency, which is becoming more prolific within our economy, I want to make sure that we have a common sense regulatory framework, and that we actually have a framework to sort of navigate this reality that cryptocurrency is becoming a more important facet of our lives and our economy.
I want to talk about House Bill 116. So it has been passed by the House, and I know it's working its way through the Senate. Talk about what that bill would do.
Yeah, sure. House Bill 116, Blockchain Basics Act. I'm really excited we got that out of the House, and really want to thank my colleagues for supporting that here in our chamber and our caucus. I thought it was a great sort of first step into kind of dipping our toes into the crypto blockchain world. It's a small government bill, I think, fundamentally, and deals with a few different things. Want to make sure, a lot of these cryptocurrencies are mined or created using, lots of computers to kind of crack a code, if you will, to create a Bitcoin, for example. I think Ohio is primed to be a leader in this space because we have so much energy and natural resources to create energy, which is similar to when we think about data centers and AI. You need lots of energy to create cryptocurrencies, and especially like Bitcoin. And I think we could be a leader in that space, and want to make sure that whether at the local or state level, that we're not over-regulating these companies. And they already exist in Ohio. There's large companies like Mara doing business in Ohio that are mining digital currencies and Bitcoin specifically. And want to make sure that we don't unduly discriminate against these businesses or consumers that own these assets. So we have language in the bill that make sure that local entities can't, hey, if you're already allowing, say, a data center in your community on a specific parcel, well, you can't create some rule that or zoning regulation that would discriminate against just Bitcoin mining facilities individually. So, if you're already allowing for like large industrial uses, we're just saying, hey, you also have to allow for Bitcoin mining. And there's also another clause. I think it's really important in there. It's a de minimis exemption when we think about capital gains tax. So, look, Bitcoin, as an example, has been one of the highest performing asset classes across our economy. It might be the top performing as far as appreciation goes. Certainly over the last 10 plus years, and so if you own a Bitcoin that you bought 15 years ago, and you now are using, this isn't happening today frequently, but again, we're trying to think ahead here. We want to be proactive, not reactive. If you're going to go use that Bitcoin to buy or part of that Bitcoin to buy a $5 cup of coffee down the street, we want to make sure that we're not putting a burden on the state or that individual to try to collect or pay capital gains tax on that Bitcoin that's appreciated thousands of times over the last 2 decades, just as an example. So if it's an under a $200 transaction using digital currency, we're just saying, hey, we're not going to worry about collecting capital gains tax at the state level, nor will we require or allow a local municipality to do that. And that's just common sense stuff. Again, if you want to go buy, $50,000 car with Bitcoin, you're going to have to be subject to capital gains tax. But when we're talking about everyday transactions, let's be honest, the state or municipalities wouldn't do that anyway because it's just so difficult to do, and we're just clarifying that in law. And so again, small government bill that just creates a framework for businesses and consumers to really adopt cryptocurrencies in Ohio.
And you bring up the multiple decades, and I think that is also a good question of when did you become aware of this space, the Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, digital assets, and when did you decide that this was a passion project or a topic you wanted to spearhead here in the legislature?
Sure. So I personally became aware of Bitcoin right before I was deploying to Afghanistan in 2014. Wow. And again, this is, I think, indicative of most things I've done in my life. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I somehow find my way and latch on to really smart people. And there's a fellow officer in my unit that, we were just kind of, talking about everything under the sun one day, and he talked to me about this thing called Bitcoin, and I had no idea what it was. And he had bought a couple. I'm like, all right, well, this guy's pretty smart, so I'm gonna buy. At the time, Bitcoin was trading for something like $600 a coin.
Wow. And what is it now? So people know.
It's over $100,000. I don't know. It's been kind of fluctuating between like 105 and 115 the last few weeks. So I don't know what it's trading at today. That's another cool thing about it. It's a 24/7 exchange, unlike the stock exchange, most stock exchanges. So I wish I bought a lot more back then.
Yeah, right. 600. Wow.
Yeah, but so that's how I found out about it. And as far as legislatively goes, here as a somewhat new legislator, and I think again, it's just something I'm passionate about personally. So no one else was doing it, so I was like, hey, let's do this thing. It's, again, I believe it's here to stay. I believe it's going to become a bigger and more important part of our economy, and I want to make sure that as we get going on a regulatory framework for Bitcoin or for digital assets generally, that we do it in a common sense way. So I just decided to go for it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I want to ask, is there anything else that you're working on right now?
Sure. I think one thing I want to call out is House Bill 18, which is, would create a reserve within, or that a unique kind of reserve fund that would sit outside of the Treasury that would allow for the state to use taxpayer money to purchase cryptocurrencies. And I think, again, we're talking about safety, security, wanting to make sure that we're not investing in these fly-by-night assets that exist across our a variety of asset classes in our economy. So the thresholds that we put into the bill would today only allow for the state to purchase Bitcoin. Again, institutional multi-trillion-dollar market capitalization asset we're talking about. It's no different than these publicly traded stocks as far as value goes, or market capitalization rather. And it would allow the Treasurer of State and a group of other leaders, the Director of Office Budget Management, the House would have oversight of it, the Senate would have oversight of it, and it would create this reserve fund that initially would be for cryptocurrencies, specifically Bitcoin as it stands today, the market stands today, but then it would allow the state to perhaps invest in other asset classes like precious metals, gold, silver, should the legislature decide to add that on as well. That's still in committee right now. I think a little higher political hurdle to overcome than, say, the Blockchain Basics Act, House Bill 116. But, this is happening, especially when we're talking about the Republican caucus. President Trump was a leader on this in the last election cycle. I think, he created this unique constituency of tech and crypto leaders that I think helped him to get across the finish line. And I think it's really exciting to see what he's doing with this at the federal level. And we want to make sure that we're following the lead not only of our federal leaders, but also our voters and our taxpayers that own millions of Ohioans own this stuff. So I want to follow their lead and create opportunities for Ohio.
And I noticed, too, as I was kind of doing some pre-research, you and Representative Josh Williams are also working on another bill in this space, correct?
Yes. We're trying to create a framework for unclaimed funds within the unclaimed fund space. So, again, just kind of trying to be proactive instead of reactive. I think as cryptocurrencies become more ubiquitous across our lives, I mean, the government's going to interact more with it too, and it's likely already happening today, where some agency through maybe a probate court kind of issue or a criminal court issue where they somehow through these proceedings get some sort of government agency or entity gets custody of cryptocurrency. And right now there's really no guidelines or plan framework for how to deal with these. So we want to sort of mirror existing unclaimed funds law and basically create rules of the road on, hey, if the government, if you will, sort of gets custody of these assets, we want to keep them in their native form. So if they get control of Bitcoin, we want the government to hold that as Bitcoin, because if the rightful owner comes back to claim those assets, that'd be really bad if they converted it to fiat U.S. dollars, because as we've seen, Bitcoin's been appreciating leaps and bounds year over year, and we'd like to return that to its rightful owner in its native form to create the most value for that rightful owner, instead of converting it to U.S. dollars. And so we're just kind of creating rules of the road when we're thinking about unclaimed funds. So that's been I think it's been eye-opening on every one of these bills, Olivia. I think there's a lot of education that still needs to happen. That's been a fun part, too, of kind of getting involved in this policy area, is just helping my colleagues and my friends here in our caucus and beyond learn more about this important asset class.
And I think that was a really good way to try to wrap up this, too. And I wanted to end with, what do you think is the biggest misconception, or what piece of education would you like to leave listeners with?
Sure. I think the legacy media has really used some really tired narratives over the years on cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. We've heard it's unsafe. Well, I would argue it's a lot safer than carrying around wads of cash or than using a traditional bank account to store value, because of the nature of where this stuff's exchanged on the blockchain. It's nearly impossible to manipulate the blockchain, which is just an historical ledger of every exchange made on cryptocurrencies or other stores of value. And so I think that's a misconception. I think the other one is that, like bad guys are using this to skirt around government or laws. That certainly has happened. But guess what? That happens with, you show me anything of value and I'll show you bad guys that are trying to get in between its rightful owner and that thing of value. I mean, look, we just read at the Louvre Museum in Paris, thieves that broke in to steal Napoleonic era jewels. I mean, since the beginning of time, there's been bad people that want to steal from others, and it doesn't matter what asset class we're talking about. And guess what? Terrorist organization and bad guys use cash too. And I would argue that, again, the blockchain provides a vehicle for law enforcement to find and track down these bad actors when it comes to trying to use crypto to whether buy drugs or weapons illegally. And there's a great case case study on this in the Philippines. I think in May of this year, the FBI tracked down some bad guys in the Philippines that were using crypto or attempting to use crypto for illicit means. And again, I don't think that would have been possible without the blockchain. The blockchain ledger, and if they were trying to use cash to do this, it would have been nearly impossible to catch these guys. So I think that's a tired narrative. And I think the one earlier that, I can't touch it and feel it. Well, guess what? You're not doing that with most things that you own of value today, whether it's stocks or cash. I mean, that's all online now. And I think crypto's just another store of value that is using sort of the modern online technology to create value for consumers.
Absolutely. Thank you for explaining that to State Representative Steve Demetriou. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Olivia.
Yeah, quickly want to talk about our social media. You can follow us on the Ohio House GOP Caucus on Facebook, Ohio House _GOP on Instagram, and OHR GOP Caucus on Twitter. You can subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks so much.